Welcome to the She Force Show. I'm your host, Amy Carlson. I have a delightful guest today, Joan Kosmachuk, who is a seasonal color, style, and confidence coach. Joan, I have been so excited for this conversation. Welcome.
Thank you. And I have been excited to have this talk with you as well. We've talked a lot, but now to get to do it for everybody else, that's going to be fun too.
Absolutely. So, Joan, I love color, and I know that I've rarely met a person who is not intrigued by color. And I would love to hear how you got started. What led you into this area of seasonal color and style?
Well, I think that it probably started when I first had a color analysis done back in the 1980s by Color Me Beautiful. They had these, kind of fun little party things where you could go and have your colors done, and you got a book with all these little colors, and it was just a really fun thing to do. Unfortunately, although they got my season right, they were prepackaged colors, and I didn't actually fit into their package of what was the spring. And so, within probably 6 months, a year, that little color book ended up in the drawer, and I thought, well, yeah, that was fun, but it did not impact me at all. And throughout the years, every time I'd get a little bit frustrated with my style, because I was not born with a style gene. I don't even really have a huge interest in fashion or, style, because I'm just a very simple person. But I wanted to look good, right? I wanted to feel good. And what would happen is, I would go and I'd buy some new clothes, and then I'd have what we call buyer's, regret or disappointment, because after a time or two of wearing them, I wouldn't feel good in them anymore because the newness had worn off, and I would think there's something wrong with this. It just doesn't look great on me. And I would try to copy other people, and I just was always struggling. So I'd go periodically for like a style image consultant or a color person, and I would try all these things out. And then one day I had I thought was a pretty good color analysis, and I thought, well, this is really fun. And I took my friend, and while I was sitting there watching it, I was thinking, oh, I know what color she's going to pick for her. And I realized that I had this intuitive, sense of color, at least for other people. And certainly that had been my role in my family and with my friends, was they always took me shopping to tell them whether or not something looked good. So when one of my jobs came to an end, my husband said, why don't you, go explore that color thing you were so interested in? And I met my mentor, Kathy Williams, in the process of taking some color training, and that changed my life because she had been trained by Suzanne Cagill's right-hand person, and she was able to really introduce me to what is the power, the true power of wearing the colors that match your inherent color harmony. All the other color systems I, played around with, it was all about coming at it from a fashion perspective. Oh, these colors look good on you. Oh, you could wear any of these. But they were not really in depth, and they didn't really give me any understanding of why did these colors work, or how did I wear these colors, or what should I buy them in. It was just like, oh, here's a palette of colors that, you can wear these and nobody's going to call the fashion police. So, but what Kathy taught me was just so life-changing, the work of Suzanne Cagle, and I could not have enough. And so I began mentoring with her, went into a deep dive, and here I am over a decade later, still doing it, loving it, still learning, still just passionate about color.
That's amazing. I love that journey. It says a lot about you too, and what drives you. And obviously, seeing what you're wearing today too. Like we know whether we understand what's going on, when we see somebody that's wearing a color that is just right for them, we know it, don't
We
we?
do. We
And
call
it
that visual harmony. It's
visual
when
harmony.
the clothing is visually harmonious with the person, and it's color. It's also style and texture. It has to tap into the energy of the person. It has to tap into their style, aesthetic. It has to tap into their personality, and it needs to relate to them like on every level. Then you see, oh, that's visual harmony, and we are attracted to visual harmony. And I can tell you, I was zipping through the airport a couple weeks ago on my way to a funeral. I had not put a lot of thought into my travel outfit, but I had a gentleman call out to me, "Excuse me, ma'am, excuse me." And I thought, oh, gee, what if I drop now? I'm kind of rushing. And I turned around and he said, "I'm sorry." He said, "I just have to tell you, you look so lovely in your outfit." And I thought, now you see, there is the power of having everything in your wardrobe that's visually harmonious with you, because without a lot of thought putting that outfit together that morning at 4:30 a.m., I still was visually harmonious, and it was impactful enough that someone had to stop and tell me.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So when we feel visually harmonious, I'm just imagining, I've just dipped my toes into this, and you and I have had some conversations leading up to this interview, um, because I'm just fascinated by this. And when we get to experience ourselves in that way,
Mhm.
I can only imagine what that you have seen and witnessed some really amazing transformations with people when they get to experience this for the first time.
Mhm.
Do you have any examples that you'd like to share?
Yeah, so it really does make a huge difference in how you feel about yourself. That's where the most important thing is. And I was just talking about this with someone the other day, and I said, I worked with some people who have come to me for various reasons, um, who've had very low self-image, or been very unwell, and they have been struggling. They have been just struggling with wellness. And therapists sometimes send someone who's struggling with maybe image issues or body
Sure.
dysmorphia or things like that. They'll send them to me because they recognize that there is a therapeutic value in having someone show you your beauty, right?
Yes.
That's really, really important. And so what happens often is people are just shocked because you're doing the color analysis and the colors are starting to unfold on the table. And they're saying things like, "Oh, those colors are so beautiful," or, "Oh, those colors are so pretty." And then I'm saying, "Yes, aren't you?" Right? Because these are your colors. This is you. Look how gorgeous you are. And it's almost sometimes a lot to take in, like, that's actually me. And seeing yourself in that way through the lens of your inherent colors, we don't see ourselves. If I ask you what the color of your eyes are, most people will say, "Oh, I think they're blue, I think they're green, I think they're brown." But they couldn't tell me, that, "Oh, my eyes are ocean blue," or they're, sage green, or they're um, teal, or they can't give me "Oh, I've got a stormy gray eye." Like, they cannot give me that kind of specific detail, because we really don't even kind of take in our own color, our eye color. We stick something down on our driver's license, and it's just a category, right? We often are so busy looking at the flaws in our face or our skin that we're not really aware of, what is my skin tone. you know, if you even ask people what is their contrast level between their hair, skin, and eyes, most people they've never even thought about it. And yet all of those things inform the colors we wear and how we wear those colors. And so just opening up people to seeing their own coloring is, even if they never wear it, just the experience of them recognizing, wow, this is me.
Yeah.
That's so empowering. That's so healing. It's so nurturing. And I could just do color all day long for that reason alone. It's like, of course, I want you to dress and to feel amazing and to, create that visual harmony. But if I can just show you how beautiful you are, then I've done my job. That's the main thing that, is important to me.
Oh my gosh, how soul satisfying is what you do. My goodness, as you described that, I was just filled with all the good feelings. So you touched on kind of wellness and healing. And I'm just curious, we talk about that a lot in my sphere of people with health goals and certain things that might be going on for people in their healing journey. Do you have any general tips or advice that might have to do with color and that process?
Hmm. So there's the amazing thing about when you get a color palette is it gives you colors for all the different possible things that you're going to need your colors to do for you. And so we have, neutral colors that will support you, make you look authoritative, business. We have, those colors that make you appear more vulnerable, like the color I'm wearing today, that make you feel more, look more approachable. There's colors that, really give you energy, but they also take some energy to wear. And then there's your eye color, which just kind of works with you to help you communicate. And then we have a quiet color or uh, supporting supplementary color that is often a color that's just really soothing to wear. And it's the color that you would wear if you want to be in the background and you don't want kind of every, so if you're in a supportive role, you're going to wear that color. If you're going into a meeting and there's going to be a lot of people, bump, knocking heads and you want to come in as Switzerland, you kind of wear that color because it just takes your energy down that little bit. Sometimes when we are not well, we need a color that is not asking anything of us. It's like lowering our energy enough to support us while our energy is low, right? Because sometimes other colors demand a little bit more of us. And so we can kind of, with the right fabrics and textures, we can cocoon in this kind of quiet color. And it's going to make us feel really, really comforted. But then as we start to feel better, then we want to increase the vibration of our color so that it rises up to meet the increasing energy that we're now starting to feel. So if you are trying to, get yourself out the door on a walk, or you're trying to get yourself out the door to the gym, the swimming pool, you want to wear your higher energy colors, those colors that are more, have a higher vibration, because they're going to give you energy, right? So you put them on and you just all of a sudden feel kind of braced and ready to go. And most of us feel more animated or more braced when we wear, two or three of our colors together. So that's why you often see, in workout gear, it's like, oh, it's one color, but then it's got a stripe of this and a, trim of that and these different colors, because that gives us this animated, sporty, kind of feel, and it's going to give us energy to get going. So it's about knowing your colors and using them to effect. And so, for example, your skin tone, if you're tired and you're just feeling, ugh, but you have to go and do something and you've got to meet people, put on your skin tone, because it just is going to make you look rested and fresh. And you might be, running on 3 hours sleep, but you're going to look like you just got up glowing. So, every color on the color palette has that power. Now, a lot of people want to say, oh, wear purple for healing, or wear, red for energy. Or there's a psychology of color that they're referring to. And there might even be some other, healing crystals or things that they're talking about that they're drawing color from. And those are helpful as well, as long as that color is on your palette. Otherwise, it's going to make you not feel so great. So you would use that color then, if it's a healing color, you would maybe use it in your um, decor, or, in the flowers that you pick to put on your desk, or the candle that you're going to burn, or the things where you're needing to take in that color, right? That color is, you want that color to receive its healing properties, but it isn't going to be beneficial to you to wear it. So that's the big thing. And it's not like if you're in autumn that you don't get to wear, all these colors, or it's you individually, right? What are the colors that support you? And what really happens, I think, there's such a distortion of self in our society right now, where we're so busy trying to look like other people. We're changing our faces, we're the structure of our faces. We're changing our hair color, we're changing our body shape by adding, everything. I mean, you can get having always had a bit of a booty, I just find it shocking that anybody wants to add that on, but you can you can add in all these things. And so we become almost clones of one another. We don't have any individuality, and that doesn't make us well, right? Because we lose a part of ourselves. And so there's nothing wrong with enhancing yourself. If you're a person who loves playing with, color in your hair, there's nothing wrong with that, but it has to relate to you. If you're copying somebody else, then you're going to get lost in the process. And when we get lost in the process, there's nothing healing about the colors that we wear. It doesn't matter what people tell you, oh, purple is healing, and you throw it on. If it has nothing to do with you, not going to work. In fact, it's going to have the opposite effect, because it's going to take away something that's inherent to you. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. And I just think of the depth of all of this as you're talking about this. And I know we're just um, barely hitting into all of what it is that you do and about this whole process, but that ability to be seen in that way, in our uniqueness. And it makes me think too about what you referenced at the beginning when you first had your colors done and things were very like, okay, I think we spoke before that you are a spring,
Yes.
right? So you're a spring, therefore you fit in this category, which is a lot like what I work with people on too with health. And so many of these kind of diets is like this one size fits all. And that
Mhm.
is not at all how anything works with any of us.
Right.
So I'm so delighted to hear more about the process and this individual, the way that you work at such an individual level in seeing people. And yet within that, there are these kind of broader categories that have to do with the seasons.
Mhm.
Can you speak to that a bit? I'm just so curious about how the seasons work in with it as well.
Right. So Suzanne Cagle, and that's the method that I studied under, and chose to embrace. She was the pioneer of the four seasons. So she did not technically invent the whole concept of, color analysis, because Johannes Itten, for example, had done an art experiment where he took a group of students who had not been influenced, and can never do this today, but they hadn't been influenced by any other outside teachers or ideas about color and painting. And he asked them to paint the color wheel. Now they understood the mechanics of color mixing and all of that, so they knew how to do that. And he asked them to paint a color wheel. And each one of them painted that color wheel reflecting their own inherent color quality. And that was a total shock to him. And he really sort of talked to the fact that when we want to create, we want to create our own art, right? We don't want to copy other people, because what really is our magic is creating our own stuff. So what he said was that if if you strip away all the things you've been taught and you just create out of who you are, then that's going to be your most powerful starting point, because that's really coming from your inner being. And so he started that, and Suzanne often talks about his work in that study and how that impacted, this concept. You'll see in textbooks, and I have no idea why we stopped teaching it, but in textbooks back from the 1920s and 30s, we actually taught this idea of color harmony, that if you had, yellow blonde hair and blue eyes, and, you would look at these particular colors to wear. And if you had dark hair, and you would look at these colors to wear. And it's like we understood that idea has been used in costuming for years. So how do you get an actress to look like so many different people and to play all these different roles? Well, you use color, you dye her hair, you put in, different contact lenses, you change her makeup, and you change the style and the colors that she wears, and suddenly she morphs into this whole other character and personality, right? So a really good costumer understands this whole concept of how you can create an effect with your clothing. So then how come we, ended up here where most of us, we're lucky if we can put an outfit together, that doesn't look all mishmash. And and most people, when I ask, what's your goal? Their basic goal is I just want to look put together. I feel like I never had that clue on how to get myself put together. And we're so inundated by marketing and other, to black, for example. Okay. Oh, everybody should wear black. It's slimming. If you want to know something, it's not universally slimming. If I wear black, look at how light I am, right? So when you put black on me, it's like putting an anchor on me. It's like weighing me down. So as a spring, I'm lit from within by sunshine. And so, you just take this dark, heavy black and it just drags me down. So, we have all these rules that we think about color that have come through the fashion industry and that we have kind of been brainwashed into thinking about. So Suzanne, sorry, because I went off
No, that's
tangent
good.
there.
It's good.
But Suzanne was the one who pioneered the Four Seasons. And the story is that she had been ill and that she'd had this kind of vision when she looked out her window at nature. And always loved to have nature as my backdrop, because that's really the heart of our work. But when she looked out at nature, she noticed that everything in nature was harmonious within itself. So if you look at a tree, the bark of the tree, the color of the leaf, the fruit or the flower that comes from that tree, it's all harmonious within itself, with very few exceptions. I look at an animal, the color of the animal's eyes and hair, like fur, and the various shadings, all harmonious. And she thought, if that was true of nature, and we too are from nature, then wouldn't that be true of us? And so she started to look at these, sort of categories of quality of color, we call it. And she discovered all these things that she kind of packaged up in correlation to the influence of nature on us. And so, for springs, we have that inner light, which is the sunlight. That's our energy. Everybody needs a spring for a friend, because we're bubbly and we're the ones who can get a conversation going, and we always have, crazy ideas, and a lot of spontaneity. So, you want to have a spring in your life. But, she related the spring line of design and this is the most amazing thing, to the flowers and the shapes of those petals. You'd be astounded how you can just look at your season's flowers and you can see the style lines that will be most flattering on you, because there's this direct connection. So I always love to find my client in nature and put them in a nature collage so they can see their energy and their connection, and see like, oh, if you've been anything other than the beautiful human being you are, you might have been in one of these, aspects of nature. So that's it wasn't an arbitrary thing. And a lot of people now use the seasons the same way you say, like 1, 2, 3, 4, or, archetypes or whatever. They just use it as a way to like market a package, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, I'm going to sell these 15 colors. I have to call them something. So I'm going to call them spring, and I'm going to call them summer. I'm going to call them winter. They don't even understand what that means, right? They don't understand. So the client doesn't understand what that means. So I, meet a lot of people said, oh yeah, I went and had one of those like $100, color consults done, and they told me I was a spring, and I don't know what that means. And it's like, well, that's the problem. Because at the core of all of this is understanding your relationship to nature. So when I met Kathy, my mentor, for the first time, I didn't think seasons were so important, because I had the 4 seasons done, and, it had not changed my life. It had been unimportant. So I thought, as long as the colors are right, like that's all that matters. And she just went, oh, you must promise me you will never do color if you don't understand the seasons. And I'm like, why? And she said, it would be such a ripoff. She said, to the people who you work with, she said, you would be just gypping them, because there is so much depth of understanding and really understanding what your connection is to your season in nature. And it's been true. I just am astounded at, how powerful the seasonal component of seasonal color analysis really is, because it anchors us. It anchors us in a place that helps us have a better understanding of ourselves, of our energetic light, of, why we are maybe built or, designed the way we are, because it helps us to achieve the purpose for which we've been called. And that's just really powerful. So we wouldn't say to the tulip, gosh, you would look so much better if you were a rose. Or we wouldn't say to the, autumn leaves, oh, you were much prettier in the spring, right? We enjoy the beauty of all of nature. And I think, one of the things that I found so powerful is that when I can show you your beauty in nature, I strip away all of Hollywood's effects, all of the fashion, industry's effects, because now you're not comparing yourself to some movie star, you're not comparing yourself to some model or even to some, brand catalog. You're comparing yourself to nature. And who can go out and say that anything in nature is ugly, right? Nothing. And we find the beauty in nature often in the unusual, the bizarre, the different, the unique. And then when we realize that that's us too, then it makes it easier to start to appreciate our own beauty. And when we start to appreciate our own beauty, everybody else follows.
Oh, that totally makes sense. Thank you for that explanation. And I feel like that could really relate to the harmony. You spoke of the visual harmony, and then um, as you present to people that how you see them in nature, that feels like that would really evoke a sense of harmony as well.
Mhm. Yeah. Because, if I give you a flower that has all of the shapes of your face, that it has your coloring, that it has your energy, and I say, look at this, look at how this relates to you, you're seeing something of beauty, right? Something in nature of beauty. And now you're seeing the harmony between you and that beautiful thing. That's very, very powerful.
Absolutely.
Very, very powerful.
Yes. Whew. I know I'm like many questions are popping up all at once, but I'm also just taking all of this in. And I'm seeing what you do. There's a lot of different words that are coming to mind for me. So I feel like you're a bit of a detective.
Yes, absolutely.
And what other ways would you describe it? Is in the process that you go through with people? Yeah, what are all the kind of hats that you put on to
So I
find
think
these
there's
clues?
a few things. First of all, you really do need to understand color. So you need to have a good, strong understanding of color mechanics so that you know the difference between a color, well, first of all, between one pigment and another. So not all greens come from the same pigment. And so you need to understand pigments and where they come from. You also need to understand how colors are mixed to create particular effects. So we have colors that are pure. Those are right out of the paint tube. And then we have colors that could be shaded with black. We have colors that are toned with brown. We have colors that are muted, maybe with gray or with taupe or with their complement. Those create different types of color, and those qualities of color is what Suzanne Cagle referred to as the differences between the seasons. So as a spring, my colors are clear and tinted with white, which would be very different from a winter whose colors are pure out of the paint tube. Now, if I wear a winter's colors, all you'll see is the color. It's too strong for me. It's too bright. It's too overpowering. I need to water that color down. I tint it down with a bit of white so that now it can support me. I wear the color, not the color wearing me. So you need to have a good understanding of color, and you also need to understand like intensity, color intensity and contrast and value, all of those important aspects that you learn when you're painting, because you're now going to be, painting a palette for this person essentially with fabric, and you're going to need to be able to have a good working knowledge of color. So that's, really important. And unfortunately, a lot of people are, putting out, oh, I'm color analyst because they've taken a 5-day course or a 3, you know, I mentored with Kathy for over 5 years after taking multiple trainings, and I'm still training. And, if you really are going to do this work well, you have to be passionate about color, and you have to be passionate about learning more and more about it. So that's important. You do need to have some understanding and sense of the fashion industry and style, because you're going to be needing to help people translate these colors into actual clothes and helping them to tap into their style aesthetic and understand how to dress their body signature. So we have to really have a good understanding of the human body and what the shapes are and all the body particulars that are impacted by clothing. If I never had to dress my clients, they'd all look amazing. But as soon as you put clothes on, clothes start to, if they're the wrong clothes, they start to emphasize parts of us that we maybe don't want to emphasize, or they actually create a visual picture that's contrary to who we are, because they're cutting us off here and they're, chopping us up there, and they're making us look short or too long, or, different things. So you have to understand the balance, like the golden mean is 8 head lengths. Most of us are not. And so how do you adjust your wardrobe accordingly? So you have to really have a good, I'd say you have to have a good understanding of art too, art and the human design. And then you need to have some intuition, right? You need to be able to trust that intuition that tells you to ask a question or to see something as you're playing detective, as you're starting to unpack and figure out, okay, what am I seeing in this person? How is the color, when I bring a color up to her, how does, she bend the color? How does the color bend to her? So you need to have that ability to see the energetic connection between color and the person, and then that intuitive sense that gives you the information that you need from what it is you're seeing. And you also need to have a little bit of a social work hat, because you have to be aware that the person in front of you has a lot of potential vulnerabilities, right? Maybe they've been told that they're not pretty. Maybe they have some sort of eating disorder. Maybe they have been living in a country where it was not okay to be seen, or they lived in a relationship where it was not okay to be seen. So you have to recognize that you might be bringing up some vulnerabilities in this process of doing this color analysis, and you're going to have to be sensitive and responsive to that. You need to be able to read people. It's like really helpful if you're good at reading people and also knowing what questions to ask to get the information that you need. So I think that I'm really disturbed by the number of people popping up on TikTok and Instagram. I think it's great that we're now talking a lot more about color analysis, but I'm troubled like Suzanne was when Carol Jackson first kind of stole all her seasonal stuff and went off and, started mass marketing it. She said, what bothers me is that she will do much harm. And I think the power of color, as I have grown to understand it, personal color is so powerful that when it's used wrongly, it causes a lot of harm. I've had people who've lived in the wrong season for years because they were told by some, specialist, oh, this is your season. And it wasn't, and they didn't know to question it.
Yeah.
And so they tried so hard to fit into yet another box that didn't feel comfortable. And so that's the other thing. You really have to have a lot of humility when you're doing color, because if your client says, you know what, I'm just not feeling this, this isn't working, you can't say, well, you just don't understand color, or, you're just not giving it a try. You have to listen to what is it she's telling you, because maybe you got something wrong, right? I don't do a color palette in just a short little, couple of hours. I'm working on that palette with the person for those, 3, 4 hours. And then I'm pondering that palette, and I might be shifting colors around as I think about them and their energy and how they're going to use those colors and what they've told me. And and then I'm giving them the palette to use, and I'm asking for feedback. Is there something that's not working? Is everything going okay? How do you feel in these colors? We go shopping or we do closet work so we can actually see the effect of these colors together and see if there's any tweaks that need to be done. So it's so in depth. It's like, and most of my clients, like, they really get into their color. I mean, they just now pay such careful attention to the colors they're buying, to how they're wearing, to the fabrics, everything, because they realize the powerful change it's making, and they just want more and more and more. So they're just always asking more videos, more training, more. But it's because it's just a fascinating subject, and there is so much fun in it, but there's also so much power in it. Really, what we can do with color. And I'll tell you this story. Lois Marlowe Scott, who trained with Suzanne for years, or actually worked with Suzanne as her kind of right-hand person. When she first had her palette done, this was back in, the 1970s, she had saved and saved and saved for weeks. And she went, and Suzanne did this palette for her. And she said, it was such a tiny little palette. She said, I hardly had any colors. But I knew she gave people extensions to their palettes. So she saved and saved and saved. And she went back several months later and she said to Suzanne, I want an extension on my palette. And Suzanne said, my dear, you have not yet used all of the colors I've given you. She wouldn't do the extension until she had really explored the colors that she'd been given. And I think that's so true. People say, oh, a color palette is so limiting. Like, I'm only going to be able to have these colors, but it's the opposite. It's actually totally freeing, because once you're only working with the colors that make you look amazing, they all harmonize with you, but they also all harmonize with each other. So now everything mixes and matches, and you're not like having an outfit here that doesn't go with any shoes or any coat or any handbag, or, so all of those things are just little pluses, little benefits of it. But I think that we're in fast fashion, right? Everything quick, 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 quick. And we just want to, like, sometimes someone will say to me, well, I know it's not my color, but, and it's like, so tell me about the but, because then I'll tell you what your trap is. But it was on sale. So you're buying something only because it's cheap. Is that really going to achieve the goal that you want for how you look and how you show up in the world? Or, it was, I know it's not my color, but they didn't have my color in store. And you never thought about going to another store or taking a little bit of time to figure out how to find that thing in your color, whether it was dyeing it or, having it made or doing something because it was important to you to wear your colors. I know it's not my color, but the style looks great on me. And it's like, okay, sometimes style can trump color. Is this one of those occasions? And then, do you have room in your wardrobe for something that doesn't go with anything else, right? Even though it looks great. So, and, always ask yourself the question, if this was in another color, one of my colors in the store, which one would I have bought? Well, of course, we know the answer. We'd be gravitating toward our own color. So we settle a lot. you know, because we're busy people and we just need to get dressed and, you know, or we're out with friends and, oh, that's my favorite. But the salesperson told me I look fantastic in this color. It's like, because has the salesperson ever seen you in your colors? Do they know how great you look? No, so they're just telling you what you want to hear so that you make the purchase.
Yeah.
There's lots of things that get us into wardrobe trouble.
Well, and I just feel like one of the things that popped up for me as you were talking about that, I have always valued efficiency, a certain kind of like streamlined, kind of maximizing efficiency, ease and flow kind of all comes together for me. And I'm just imagining that as a result of all of this, besides along with all of the amazing benefits that you were talking about that people experience, that going to a closet that is, really consciously curated, of pieces that work together and that feel good, fabrics are right. And um, what a, like that part of me that really values that sensation of maximizing resources, optimizing um, everything. Oh, what a feeling to stand at a closet like that. No energy drain,
Mhm.
just a lot of ease and appreciation. And then knowing that, that would suit me well for, I've got that mindfulness as well. What's my energy level today? What am I doing today? How do I match that with this? Oh, okay, here we go. I'm going to be well cared for.
Mhm. Yeah. And I have what I need, right? So really, we don't need a lot when it comes to clothing. If we have those key pieces for our lifestyle and how we want to show up in the world, doesn't matter that we wear the same thing many days or many weeks. No, we don't always need to have something new. We have to think about sustainability in our world too, right? And so once you're tapping into your colors and you know that everything in your wardrobe works for you, um, you're not so attracted to those impulse purchases and those, kind of, we have actually a lot of people who come to me hate shopping for clothes. And the reason is because, it's kind of like a high to go out and purchase the garment. But then if you feel like disappointment a week or a month or even 6 months later, then the next time it's not quite the same level of high when you buy something because you have this little nickel in the back of your mind, like, well, I hope I'm still going to like this. I hope that salesperson is right. I hope my friend's not just saying it looks good on me. Or, we just stand in the mirror and we hum and haw. And I always say, if you're not sure, leave it. It's probably not right for you. There's something in your brain that's telling you, I'm not sure about this. And we don't trust that. We compromise all the time. Well, it'll do.
Yeah,
It's not terrible.
right. Oh my goodness. Well, I just want to say this here too. With this video, you will see all of the how to learn more and how to connect with Joan. And as we're wrapping things up, Joan, is there anything that you would like, just another little nugget or a step one of somebody wanting to get curious about this process?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, obviously, I think that everybody should have a personal color analysis because I think it is just so hard to see yourself. But let's say you're not ready for that and you just kind of want to play around and experiment with this whole idea of visual harmony. Take something simple like your hair color and repeat it in something that you wear. That might be a pair of pants, shoes, and a handbag. It could be a jacket. Just repeat your hair color. And, most of us can make that match, right? Now the quality of the color is important. So, but hair color is a neutral. And so most of us can, make that match. Unless you have a colored hair, then you might be a little bit more of a struggle. It's harder for me to say wear your eye color because we don't usually know what our eye color is. I'm always shocked by that. But if you try to match your hair color, then you might have, the opportunity to just kind of see what does it look like if I put, for example, my hair color on my feet. Okay, then we create this beautiful color circle. So whatever you're wearing on top, if you're wearing that on the bottom, then the eye is always drawn back up to the face. That's really, really helpful. And so if you're wanting to be seen, always bring that eye back up to the face. If you don't have dark hair, black hair, then you shouldn't be wearing black shoes because they're heavy and everybody's eye is drawn down to your feet. And if you ever had that experience where you're talking to someone and they keep looking down at your feet and you don't know why, and it's probably your shoes, and they don't know that they're looking at your shoes, but they get stuck there and they can't come back up. And when they do, they just end up back down at your shoes again. So that's just a little tip. But also, I would say, color aside, when we are thinking about ourselves, we have a tendency to think about ourselves in terms of our flaws. And, I used to, whenever I would buy something, my only goal in that purchase was to make sure that it didn't show my stomach because I have a tummy. And so I did not want to have that tummy showing. So it didn't matter what else was going on with the garment. My only focus was, does it make me look, pregnant? And we all have one of those, sort of things that I shouldn't say all, there are probably some wonderfully balanced people who don't, but for many of us, it might be my nose is too big, or it might be, I don't like my ankles, or I don't like something. So one of the exercises I did when I was doing the training was to draw a picture of my body. And then I took an arrow and I pointed to every perceived flaw of me. And I wrote down what it was. And when I had the whole picture, I said, now, what can I do to change this? Can I change anything on here that I don't like about myself? And you know what? There sometimes are things that you can change. You can get a different hairstyle. You can, lose some weight. You can have some surgery. Like there are many things that if you choose, you could make a change. Then you have to ask yourself, is it worth it to me to change that? Like, is it so important that I would, forego the money, that I would change how I look in order to remove that flaw? Is that so important to me? And, in my case, the answer was no, I'm not going to go and have surgery. I'm not going to, and a lot of the things I can't change, like I can't change my bone structure. I can't change, the coloring that I was born with. I can't change any of those things. And you know what? In the end, I don't really want to, but I want to be able to love the person on that paper, flaws and all. And so then how can I learn to love that person? And the more you can see your beauty reflected through whatever, modality that you choose to do that, the more that will heal that hyper focus on your imperfections and allow you to see the whole picture. Stop the comparison of yourself with models or with movie stars who, by the way, when they go out, they do their best to become invisible, right? And here we are walking around invisible, doing our best to try to be seen. So, maybe sometimes being so seen is not always the answer, but to start to be kind to yourself, to start to celebrate who you are and who you were created to be. Because you know what? This body, this temperament, this coloring, all of those things have equipped me to fulfill the purpose that I was given in the world. And, you know, that's not just one thing. We do many things, right? We sometimes have many careers throughout our life. We're parents, we're sisters, we're children, we're friends. We have like many different roles that we play. But who you are, the season in which you were born, who you were meant to be, that was a design. And it was designed for a purpose, just as you were designed for a purpose. So embracing that about yourself, um, it's very healing. You know, it's very, very healing. I'll give you like just a really silly example. So when I was like 13 or 14, maybe 15, I went to a makeup counter and I was, you know, now old enough to wear foundation. I was so excited about that. And all the makeup artists at that time, they were very concerned about my high coloring, as you can see. You know, my skin tone is pretty glowing. And so they would put like green primer or purple primer on me. And, you know, because the ideal beauty was to have this like white, you know, face essentially, like this really, you know, colorless complexion. And then they would add their own color to it. And what happened to me was I started to not feel okay about my skin color. You know, when I was a kid, I never thought anything of it, right? But all of a sudden it was a problem. Oh, this wasn't beautiful. This was terrible. So it took me until I had my colors done in my 50s to be okay with my skin. And when Kathy first gave me my skin tone, I was like, I'll never wear that. That's going to make me look orange. And she said, why would you think that? And I said, well, it's going to bring out all this color in my face. And, you know, I doing everything I can not to bring out this color in my face. And she said, I just want you to go out and buy a $10 t-shirt in your skin tone that I've given you. And I want you to wear it. And you just tell me how it goes. And so I put it on and I looked in the mirror and I thought, oh my gosh, look at me. I look like a pumpkin, you know, just so colorful. And I wore it out and I had so many people walk up to me and say, you look beautiful in that color. Oh, you look so lovely in that color. And then I had to say, maybe my perception has been skewed. And so I started to buy more things in my skin tone. And I was getting literally compliments everywhere I went. Oh, you look so beautiful. This is my blush tone, but my actual skin tone is kind of a soft peach. And when I wear that color, people say, oh, you look so pretty in pink. And I want to say, no, it's peach. But it has transformed how comfortable I am, even to go out of the house without makeup, or, you know, just to look in the mirror and to feel okay about my healthy glow. And so it's color can just be so impactful because we don't realize the negative messaging we're giving ourselves all the time. And we're not able to see the beauty in that always because we're masking it. So, yeah, I would say just try to look at those things that you have maybe perceived as flaws and try to see them in a positive light. Get help if you need that, but begin to, you know, change your perspective because we're all beautiful, just like all of nature is beautiful. There's no mistakes. We are all gorgeous. And for some of us, we absolutely fall in love more with those things that are a little bit quirky and unusual and funky in nature. And why not in people too?
Oh, Joan, that's just the perfect way to wrap this up. It's so uplifting, so empowering, and such a overall positive message. This conversation has been delightful. I know that everyone that encounters it will benefit, and thank you for taking the time and sharing um, this introduction with us to the wonderful world of color and season.
It's been my absolute pleasure.
Mm.
Thank you for having me, Amy.
So, as I always sign off, and this interview fits right in with my tagline, know yourself, be yourself, free yourself. Until next time.